on modeling tools. And I really do appreciate you wanting to do this, Clark. Thank you so much, and I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you. We're going to share the screen, if I may. I think how's that, everybody?
Good.
Okay, so let's. I really am in that club. The guy with the most tools when he dies is the winner. And I love tools and gadgets, and I think that's why Al Collins and I get along so well. He's a tool guy too. Anyway, let's go. So, you know, if you're going to be building a model railroad, you need the proper tools. And one of the things you have to do is buy well, buy once, and that goes for any tool or anything you do. In my opinion, don't, you know, a lot of people say, oh, I'm cheap. Well, you know, you're buying a tool that's going to last you a lifetime. So buy something that's got some value in it. And that doesn't mean you have to go crazy. There's some tools, there's no need to spend a lot of money. You know, you can go to Harbor Freight or other places and get them. So, but buy well, buy once. And let's make things clear. I see this all the time. Guys, if you're a plumber, you have plumbing tools. If you're a woodworker, you have woodworking tools. And if you're a modeler, you should have model tools. And there's lots of crossovers, you know, clamps, glues, pliers, and the list goes on that cross over into just your regular everyday household tools compared to model tools. But at some point, you're going to need some model tools. You know, X-Acto blades, an assortment of sizes, small pliers, squares, specialty cutters, track gauges, and tools related for track work, and the list goes on.
Clark, can I interrupt you just a minute?
Yes, sir.
There's somebody has got a radio on or television or something in the background because it's coming over you.
Somebody's watching curling again.
Yes. I didn't realize it was on, to be honest. I couldn't hear it. How's that? That's better? I'm sorry, you guys.
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
A major apology. I hate when people do that, and here I am doing it myself. All right. Do you have some tools? A lot of people, you know, this is really one of those things that everybody has their own little tool that they like to use or they found that works for them, and that's really important. So maybe we can do some sharing of tool ideas later on. So one of the big things is lighting, and I can't stress this enough. If you have a bench and you're doing your modeling at a different area of other than on your layout, make sure you're using the same light on your workbench that you do in the railroad room. Prime example, I had a friend of mine who custom built and painted before you could buy anything like this. Some Ontario Northern are on some O&R cars, and he had a custom make the paint, and they were just gorgeous on his workbench. When he brought them out and put them on his layout, they went from green to blue. And the reason is because of the different lighting. So make sure you're using the same light on your workbench that you do have on the layout. Additional lights like the op light is fantastic to reduce shadows. And for older models, it really creates a better vision. I'm in that category. I like really bright workspaces. So lighting at your workbench. Now, this is a little portable workbench. We could talk about workbenches all the time that I have that slides underneath the layout. And I do a lot of stuff here because it's handy to the layout. And if I'm need to trial and error stuff, it works well. But you can see I've got obviously the room light, which is the same as going to be on the bench. And I've also got my opt light that you can buy at Michael's or any of those other stores or Amazon. One of the things I do for all my workbenches, I cover them with a 30 thou sheet of styrene. And I just go to a place like Tap Plastics. You can buy them in 4x8 sheets. At the place I go to, they have it in 5x10. And they're like 10 or 12 bucks for a sheet. and I get a couple of sheets, and then I just cut them up to the size of my workbench. And then if I need to replace them because I spilt crap over them, I just roll them up, throw them out, and put a new piece down. And over that, I usually use a self-healing mat and always have a piece of glass handy. I've said this many times, always using a sharp X-Acto knife. It's much safer to use a sharp blade than it is a dull blade. With a dull blade, you tend to push a lot harder instead of letting the blade do the work for you. And usually that's when you get into accidents like cutting yourself. One of the best blades that you can find and use are these number 11 X-Acto blades called the Z series. They are supposedly laser honed, but man, are they sharp and do they last, and they're not much more than regular blades. Sprue cutters. Oh man, here's another tip. A lot of times we'll use an X-Acto knife to cut off a piece from a sprue, and you'll slip and cut yourself. Buy yourself a pair of Xeron cutters. I found these little sort of diagonal cutters as well, but then get yourself a true sprue cutter. On the right, you can see they have a flush cut here, and they're great for doing stuff like nut bolt washer castings where you've got that little fine piece. The other thing is modeling squares. You know, a big square like this is great for doing sort of regular stuff around the house. But this is what's called a thin square. And you can see the difference. The thickness here is about 3/4, and this is maybe about 1/4 inch. And what happens is then the blade will actually sit on your material, where here, this is way up in the air. And you can buy them in different sizes. Micromark actually has them. I've even gone to taking brass stock and made my own because the material is so thin and I want to make sure I have a nice sharp square piece. NMRA track gauge. Everybody should have an NMRA gauge. I don't care what scale you're in. They're available pretty well. Something that's been relatively new, if you don't have one, I would suggest you get it. This is the bigger conformance piece now. Your standard gauge will just snap right in. And this now for modern equipment is this clearance that you need for doing stuff like big auto racks. If you're in you know, modern stuff, this is the N scale version, and the N scale one just fits right in there. So if you're doing modern stuff, get a hold of the NMRA and order one of these because it's well worth it. Everybody should have these truck cleaners. Now, this is an HO, but they actually will work for other scales. They're very sharp, and they are the width of basically an axle. And you pop them in, you take your wheel out, you pop them into the journals, give it a little twist, this little rubber piece, and it will clean out that journal box. You'd be amazed at how much crap is in those journals and prevents your trucks from rolling well. The other thing, and I kind of thought, oh, this is kind of a goofy thing, but I bought one anyway from Micromark. This thing really works. These tines go between the wheel and the inside of the frame of the journal, and you slide them in. And then as you squeeze it, it gently opens the truck so that the wheel can come out. It really works well. And it's got quite a spread. I don't know, Al, if it would work for the ON3. I'd have to check it actually, but boy, it might be close. It really works well, and you don't have to bend the trucks to get the wheels out as much, and it can save some damage to them. Now, long time ago, we were talking about rail joiners and putting them on. Long time ago, either somebody showed me this or I thought of it, I'm not sure which. I took either a piece of brass square tubing, or it can be round, it doesn't matter. And I take a piece of maybe 1/2 inch rail of whatever gauge that I'm using, and I solder it into the end of this brass piece. Now, what I do, I make a little shoulder when I do it, and then I file off a little bit on an angle so that the rail joiner will slip onto this fairly easily and opens up the little space for how the rail slides in, because a lot of times when they come out of the package, they're very, very tight, which is what you want, but you want to be able to open it up slightly so that you can get it on the rail. And then all you have to do is put on the top picture, you can see I've got the rail joiner on there, and you slide it into place. It's really simple, something you can make and cost you nothing. Again, I make a little shoulder here with the solder so that the rail joiner will only go halfway. It won't slide back when you try and push it onto the rail. And a lot of times I will take that rail joiner, slide it onto this piece of rail, and then take it off, flip it around so that I've widened it up just enough that it slips on, but it's not loose enough that will cause any kind of electrical problems. The other thing is, take a small flat screwdriver, and I take a Dremel cutter and I make a notch in it. And then you can actually put it right over the rail, slide that rail joiner anywhere you want. It's a very simple tool. This one is actually one that the N-Scale guys were giving out at one point, but I've made lots of them myself. Track gauges, everybody should have track gauges, whether you're using the NMRA one or these. I prefer these a little bit, especially if I'm building track. This is the standard brass 3-point gauge. This is an aluminum one that it's been cut by CNC milling by Fast Tracks. They sell these. And this is also one that he used. He's called the Trifecta. And this is great. I love this third one because it's actually cut out of acrylic. And if you accidentally leave the power on, you're not going to get a short because it can't transmit the power through the acrylic. Now, these are one of the best tools and investments I've ever made. Is you buy one of these point shaping files. Now, Fast Track sells them, but you can actually find them in fishing stores. But you have to watch. They use it for actually sharpening hooks. But you can see it's actually diamond shaped. You can see on the white box there, you can see the diamond shape. Now, on the ends or on the tips of the file here, it's actually serrated, so that if you want to clean out a flangeway or something, you can stick that right in to the flangeway this way and just file that out nice and clean. It is one of the great tools of all time. Now, some of the fishing ones do not have the serration on the edge, so you have to be a little careful of that. Okay, but I know the ones from Fast Tracks all have that. I always keep, like I think Paul mentioned, I always keep a little Tupperware container, and I've got all my track stuff in here. I don't have to go searching for it. I've got my gauges. I've got stuff to solder with. I've got an extra piece. I usually always have a really good pair of trucks that I can run through on pieces of track to make sure that I don't have any problems with bad track. This is one of my pet peeves. Guys use these track cutters to cut music wire or brass wire, and never ever do that. You just ruin the track cutter. You'll see big dents in them. It is not meant for that. These other Xuron tools, this is really cool. You put in a piece of music wire and you squeeze that. It makes a nice square cut, and the music wire doesn't go shooting anywhere. It holds it. And they're well worth every cent if you're doing a lot of music wire stuff and little things. They're the right tool for the right job. Another thing, we talked about this before, ACC, a lot of guys use the accelerator. Well, it comes with a spray pump. Well, Jesus, you don't want to use that. It goes everywhere and it stinks like hell. Get yourself one of these tools. The Tool Man sells them. All kinds of guys sell them. And basically, it's just a loop here. And you dip that in. And as you touch it to the model, that fluid will run out by a capillary, all kinds of cupola action will come out and will go into your joint and your ACC will harden up really quick. You can also make one. I just took a piece of dowel. I took a piece of brass wire, drilled a little hole, put a little glue in it. And again, I just took a hammer and flattened one end. And I took that very fine Dremel cutter and I just cut into it. So now I have a U shape there. I don't know if you can really see it in this picture, but it works the same way. You dip it into the liquid. As you touch it, the model, it runs out. Now, real glass needs real cutters. I don't cheap out on this one because the glass is too expensive to be wasted. These are pocket scribes by Starrett, which is a high British manufacturer of industrial metal tools and so forth. And these are great. So this is how it comes. You undo the knurl, pull out the tip, switch it around, put it back in, and this is as sharp as you want to get. And it's a carbide tip. And when you go to cut the glass, you won't have any problem. And as we mentioned once before in one of the shows, you do it very lightly. You don't have to push a lot of pressure because if you do, you'll just split the glass. Now, once you got the glass cut, how do you put it in? Well, this little suction cup is one of the greatest tools ever. So what you do, you have this little suction cup and it actually comes with about 5 different sizes. So all you do is squeeze the air out of it and push it down onto the glass and let the suction pull the glass right up and it will hold that forever. And that way you don't get your paws all over the glass. It's easy to put into a window. You don't have to muck with it. Box pliers. This is something that I learned in the real glass business. These are little ones, obviously. You know, I got them at the Toolman or whatever, one of the shows. And there's no serrations on these, and they're perfectly square and flat. And you say, well, why do you need those? Well, if you make a very thin cut on a piece of glass, whether it be real glass or whatever, you can't put enough force on it to make the snap. So by using those little box pliers, you could just grab that little bit of glass that you need and put a little bit of snap on it, and it will snap off. Now, the same thing goes for styrene. This is exactly the same thing. So you make your cut, but it's just a little sliver, and it's hard to get your fat fingers, at least mine, in there. And if you use other pliers or something, they're serrated and they'll mark the styrene. So just use these little box pliers, bend them over, and snap it off, and you're good to go. Small applicator bottles. These things I use constantly. I bought a set of 30 of these little bottles. They come with funnels. They come with a cap, and they have this little gizmo here, which goes over the top of the cap. And I put yellow glue in them. I put white glue in them. I use them for sometimes for paints. I'll mix up a thin paint, and I can squeeze it into my airbrush really easy. And you get 30 of these bottles with the caps and everything for like, I don't know, $12 or something. It's like crazy. And that's delivered to your door via Amazon. Everybody should have one of these. These, you know, a lot of guys, you use a steel ruler when they're cutting, but you can slip and cut your finger badly. So this has got a nice straight edge. They come in a variety of sizes. These are great, and you can buy them from Micromart. The ultimate professional sander. Al is on the call, so it's a good thing I put it on here because I don't want him mad at me. If you don't have one of these, get one. They're worth every penny, and if you're doing a lot of woodwork, and you know, even the plaster building that we're doing, you could use this on that without any problem to square things up, and it would work really well. Now these, I don't know how many have ever seen these. These are rubber paint brushes, and they come in all kinds of different angles and stuff. I have had 2 pair of these, and I just love them. I use more and more. I think of projects to use this in. Before we started the show tonight, we were talking about doing sign work. And a lot of problems with signs is that if you put your finger on a sign to push it down onto a building after you put some glue on it, it will actually fold up around your finger. Well, these rubber tips won't do that. And they're great for applying signs. They're great for doing a little stripe. You dip this into the paint, and that's a very sharp edge on this particular one. And you dip it into the paint, and you just have to touch it to whatever you're doing, and you get a nice little line about a 1/4 inch. And sometimes that's all you need, and you don't have to fool with paintbrushes or nothing. And it's just like a stamp. You just touch it. It's there. I can't tell you how many uses I'm developing for these things. And you can buy them on Amazon. I think you get 5 different types for like $7 or something. And that's Canadian. They come in firm, medium, and soft. I suggest the medium one or the firm one is actually a little, the soft is just too soft. Everybody should have a KD trip pin tool. They're just, trip pins are such a pain if they're not set right. And I suggest you can go buy these. You can use pliers, but it's just not the same. You'll break more couplers and damage more engines and cars than what this tool is worth. The other thing that I really, and I always poo-pooed it a bit, was the KD assortment. But if you get some of these crazy cars in HO now and in other things, or if you're scratch building, you need to figure out what is the right KD coupler. This has everything that they make. And if you can't figure out what coupler goes in where, you're going to Sargent. 3M transfer tray. I use this stuff constantly for roof materials, for doing all kinds of stuff. Here's a sign that I printed out on heavy cardstock, and I put it on this this little building, and I did a little bit of weathering, but I have to weather a little bit more of the building before I really get into the weathering. But it is great, that transfer tape, to do that type of work. And you don't have to worry about it, you know, discoloring or mucking up the paper. If you've never heard of these Q Concept jewelers saws, they are the bomb. I don't know if you know the fellow from oh gee, this show escapes me now, where they blow everything up and they test all kinds of stuff. Mythbusters. One of the guys on there has started a new show about interesting tools. And he interviewed this guy, and it's just a fantastic tool. It's actually got a cam lever in here. So when you put your jeweler's blade in here, it's like preset, and all you have to do is put the cam up, and it's nice and tight, and you will get no wobble, no nothing. It's great. And why do I like these? Well, when I cut the gaps, I never use a Dremel in any track work. I cut the gaps. You can see the gaps here and here. I use a jeweler's saw, and you'll never, you won't see that big gap, and you'll never have problems with your track work. They're not cheap, but boy, they're worth every penny. All right, so that's a few tools that I've used. If you're confused, please give me a shout, and I'll be happy to help you out where you can get them, or why you need them, and we'll go from there. But that's just the first installment. If Jim invites me back, we can do a bunch more. I've got probably another 30 or 40 different tools I could show you, and go from there.
Hey,
Thanks so much.
Clark. Question from YouTube. Is there a possibility to get a list of the recommended tools in the description for YouTube?
I could probably come up with one. I don't have one handy. So we can, maybe what I'll do, I'll send it to Jim, and he can put it up on the site maybe.
All right. Yeah, it's a guy from Dan Cooks, which I guess is a fan of you.
Oh, okay. Well, I usually don't have a lot of fans, so thanks, Dan.
We won't hold that against him, Clark.
Okay.
Listen, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So thank you so much for tonight, and you are invited back, and look forward to more information from you as soon as you get through with this downtown deco.
Yeah. Matter of fact, yesterday I arrived the new Magic camera. So even though I've taken pictures on how to paint it, I'm hoping we'll go through a PowerPoint and then maybe try out a little live demo.
That's fantastic. Look forward to it. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.